Hello Algebra 2 students, this is lesson 26. Our objective is how do you factor trinomials and solve right similar triangles. So let's start off with factoring, and just remember that factoring is kind of the opposite of FOILing, or of multiplying two binomials. And so I just made up some binomials here, and actually if you notice these are pretty similar in case. And I've kind of solved those out. So if we multiply this binomial by this binomial, we end up with this. What we're doing today is we're going to start with this, and we're going to end up back with this case. Okay, so we're starting with this, we're trying to end up back to here. So kind of what I've illustrated here is maybe just pause the video and see if you can find these patterns in this and see if that helps you out. So I'm just going to go over three things we should hopefully notice as we look through these patterns here. First of all, the first term right here is the product of the first terms of the binomial, so x times x. So this one comes from the product of those two. The third term, or the last one, is the product of the last terms in the binomial, so 2 times 5 will give you that 10. And the third one we should notice is the coefficients of the second term, this number right here, is the sum, which means addition, of the last two terms of the binomial. So if I say 2 plus 5, I get that 7. Okay? That also holds true even if they're different signs. This is a positive 2 minus 5. So that means this comes out to be a negative 3. So 2 minus 5 is negative 3. And then also some signs. If you start off, like if you're down here, the trinomial that has plus and plus, like this, that it's going to factor with plus and plus. If you start off with a minus and a plus, like this, a minus and a plus, it's going to factor to having two minus signs. Now, this isn't necessarily something that you need to memorize, but it's kind of something that you should just hopefully learn logically, you can figure out. But notice here, the signs are the same. And that's whenever we have a plus on that last term. See that here and here? Those signs are the same. Okay. If this is negative, this last term is negative, here and here, then the signs are going to come out to be different. Okay. And we can't really know for sure what is plus or minus here. We just kind of have to take a guess and go with it. Okay? But let's go ahead and try some here. So this one says factor. First thing I want to do is just kind of write that in standard notation. So we're going to have x squared minus 6x minus 7. So I'm going to go ahead and write my two sets of parentheses here because I'm trying to factor that. Since I have an x squared term first, I know that this is the product of this number and this number. Only two things I can multiply together would be x and x. Technically, I guess I could multiply x squared and 1, but we're going to go with x squared and x. So this gives me x and x. Now, because these signs are, this last sign is negative, I know that my signs are going to need to be two different signs. One's going to have to be positive, one's going to have to be negative. This is a standard, I always put the first one positive and the second one negative. Now what I have to do is try to figure out what number do I put here and here. So essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find factors of this third term that will subtract to give me this term. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give kind of all the factors of this, of 7, which is, since the prime is just going to be 1 and 7, I'm going to subtract them somehow to get 6. Well, that would be fairly, or going to get negative 6, be fairly easy. I would either need, well, 7 and 1, so 7 minus 1 gives me 6. So now what I have to think about is, which one do I want positive? Do I want to say, put the 1 here, so those are 1 positive, and then the 7 here? Or do I want to put the 1 here and the 7 here? So let's think about this real quick. what if I had 7 and I subtracted 1? That's what would happen if I put the 7 here and the 1 here. Well, this would give me 6, which is not what I was wanting. However, if I did 1 minus 7, that's what it would be like if I put the 1 here and a 7 here. That gives me negative 6, which is actually what I'm wanting. So then, what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to write in the 1 and the 7 there. Okay. And then to check that, we're just going to FOIL or multiply those two binomials. So x times x gives me x squared. X times negative 7 gives me negative 7x. 1 times x, that gives me x. And then 1 times negative 7 gives me that negative 7. It's going to give me x squared minus 6x minus 7. This is exactly what we started with. This and this is the same. So then, yes, this indeed here is my answer. Now this next one is just a slight bit different because notice that my coefficient here on this x squared is negative. So the first thing I'm going to do before I do anything else is I'm going to want to make that positive. So I'm going to factor out a negative 1. So think about just factoring out negative 1 times what will give me all of this? Well, it would be x squared minus 6x minus 16. So really, if I took this negative 1 and multiplied by this, it gives me negative x squared. Negative 1 times a negative 6x give me positive 6x. Negative 1 times negative 16 give me the positive 16. So now I'm just going to work on factoring this part here that's inside those box parentheses, and then just not forget that I have that negative 1 that I need to write on the outside. So since that first term in that trinomial is an x squared, I'm going to write x and x, because I know x times x will give me that x squared. Then I need to find factors of 16 that subtract to give me 6. So let's just kind of go through real quick and find some factors of 16. I got 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 3 doesn't go into that, 4 and 4. Okay. And again, since this last sign is a minus sign, I'm going to want to subtract these numbers. Right now I'm just going to initially just see, not worry about the sign, but worry about what those come out to be. So if I subtract these, 1 minus 16 is going to give me negative 15. That's not what I'm looking for. 2 minus 8 gives me negative 6. And then 4 minus 4 gives me 0. So this, not that one, this center one here is a combination I'm looking, even though I really need a positive 6, I'll see if I can figure that out. So I guess now let's look at the signs. This last one is negative, so I'm going to have one side is positive, one side is negative. So I need to think about, do I want to put the 2 here and the 8 here? Or do I want to put the 8 here and the 2 here? Well, since this sign in here is positive, that means this number is going to be positive, so I'd be saying positive 2 minus 8. That is going to give me negative 6. Or if I say 8 minus 2, it's going to give me positive 6. And I'm going to want the negative 6, so I'm going to pick that top option. So this is going to be 2 here and 8 here. So let's just FOIL this real quick. FOIL to check. you can know that you got 100%, at least on this part of the homework, because you're going to check that. So let's FOIL these. So I have x times x, which is going to give me x squared. Then I have x times negative 8, which gives me negative 8x. Then I have 2 times x, which gives me 2x. Then I have 2 times negative 8, which gives me negative 16. And if I add those, it's going to give me x squared minus 6x minus 16. Then remember, I have this negative 1 to multiply by all that. So all this is being multiplied by negative 1, which can be negative x squared plus 6x plus 16, which is exactly what I started with. So then my answer is going to be this. Alright, one more that's kind of similar to B. I'm going to first find something that I can pull out of all of them. I'm seeing that they all have an x squared that I can pull out. And they also all have a factor of negative 3 I'm going to pull out. So what's left over from this one? Well, I got rid of the x squared. So 3 times what gives me 24? It's going to be 8. And since this was positive, and I pulled out a negative, that's going to be negative 8. Then I have to have a minus 7x, because I took out 2 x's out there. Took out a negative 3. Negative 3 times the negative 7 gives me that positive 21. Then over here I'm going to have plus x squared, because I took out the negative 3, changing it to positive, and I took out 2 of the x, 2 of the x's to make x squared. So then, just writing this in the standard form, it's going to be x squared minus 7x minus 8. So now we're going to try to factor this part here. We're going to have an x and an x. Now I said they're going to be different because that last one is negative. I need to find factors of 8. Let's subtract to give me 7. Well, that tends to be fairly easy. I can go 1 and 8. I want to have a negative 8 plus 1 is going to give me that negative 7 in the middle. Of course, remember that 3x, negative 3x squared to put on the outside edge. FOIL to check, but we're running out of time of getting this posted on YouTube, so FOIL to check that if you want. Alright, I'm seeing that I'm not going to have time to solve this in the amount of time we have to post, so I have to make a second video for this part of your lesson, so feel free to watch that again. Again, look for part B of this lesson.